Hello folks, welcome back. So far we have talked about try-catch block, and in the try block is basically the block of code where you think might throw an exception, and then if it throws an exception it will be handled by the catch block. So similarly we have something called as a finally block. So the catch block will only execute in case if there is an exception, and that particular corresponding catch block will execute. Now, what is this finally block? The finally block is basically a block of code that will execute even if an exception occurred or even if an exception didn't occur. In both the cases, this finally block will execute. The catch block will only execute to handle if an exception has occurred, so corresponding catch block will get executed. Now, in the finally block, that will execute no matter if the exception occurred or if it didn't occur. So let's see an example to illustrate that. So in this case, I have a try-catch block which has already been created, and this is an example we discussed in our last tutorial. So let's say I have added a finally block here. The way to write a finally block is this, and then here you specify that, okay, finally block code. So now in this case, there is no exception getting occurred because you're trying to display an element at this location at array of 0, which has an element of 18. So in this case, there is no exception will occur, so catch block will not execute, but the finally block will still execute. So let's go ahead and run this Java application. So in this case, as you can see, this displayed the value, and that is 18, and in the finally block code ran. Now in the next scenario, what happens is, now if you go ahead and change the value, let's say in this particular block you have a system.out.println, and let's say you are trying to access an element at location 20 and the size of the array is only 5, and you're trying to access an element which is at the index 20, so that's not possible. So in this case, you're going to go ahead and throw an exception. So this catch block will get executed, but finally block will still get executed. So run as Java application. So it will go ahead and execute the catch block as well as the finally block. So what is when the catch block execute? Catch block only executes whenever there is an exception and you need to handle that. Now finally block will execute even if an exception occurred or if the exception doesn't occur. In both the scenarios, the finally block will get executed. Now what is the purpose of the finally block? So whenever you're making any database connections or you're consuming some resources, you need to close those resources. No matter you are able to make connection with the database or you're not, you need to close those resources that you're using. So in both the scenarios, if an exception occurred or if the exception didn't occur, in both the scenarios I need to close the resources. So those kind of code that will go in the finally statement. So I hope you liked my tutorials. I will request you please to leave me a nice review. If you have any questions, you can always contact me. You can send me a message on Udemy. I'll always respond back within a day. Thank you so much for taking my course. I really appreciate that, and have a nice learning experience, and I'm glad that you joined my course. Thank you so much.